another warm or very warm day with the variable amounts of cloud allowing some bright or sunny spells. However, there will be also the slight chance of one or two showers developing. These potentially heavy and thundery. The moderate or fresh east or northeast winds will fall light again with a maximum temperature up to 22 degrees today. Any showers will soon die away tonight, leaving tomorrow fine and dry with long sunny spells. Light winds as temperatures again rise to 22 degrees. The outlook continuing mostly dry and sunny for the rest of the week and remaining warm. And the weather in Manx now, Phil Gawne.
An emsha dú le bla na che elia tón dú leis báidealan céchlach liga de shealan geall as grianach de hit rish. Ta ce veg on the be frasnige chit rish as ma visad chit odacad ve trubm as tenol. Ní na geachan ménach na bioa vai an sha na tui sha slowtail gus shaden gi leis temperela smooth gis as feed Celsius. Ma vis frasanon ní ad slowtail nach as be a brau as tiramerach le shell and grianach farachton. Shaden gi as temperelas giri gus gis as feed Celsius rish. As an riet, tiram grianach as blas on an hood smooth son and Chachten a man.
For a Sunday morning, and not a bad day out. A bit of a strange wind, Phil, isn't it? From the wrong direction, as we say here in the island.
Well, apparently it's not. I was talking to Adrian Cowan. I was actually out at the clerking the Arbery Parish Commissioners meeting the other night, and Adi was saying that as long as the wind is coming from the east, you're not so bad in terms of mist on the mountain. It's when it starts moving around into any of the other directions. That's when potentially this time of the year with all the heat, you can start getting mist. So actually, a nice little breeze from the east is a good thing. Unless I misunderstood what Adi was saying. But,
no, it makes sense, I suppose, because we're always when the winds from the usually standard southwest here in the Isle of Man, isn't it? And it's the warmest wind, but. Obviously, it does put mist, but that's the last thing we want to see for this fortnight, isn't it?
Particularly when you get such glorious weather like we're having at the moment. So, it's great. I mean, it is fantastic. I was out, been out the last couple of days, marshalling down on the Southern 100 course, and absolutely fantastic weather. Of course, we managed to get the only isolated shower that came yesterday. We managed to get it, but yeah, it wasn't too bad.
And there was nowhere else on the course, there.
No. I know it was Friday, wasn't it? Friday evening. Yeah, there was just one shower came through, but yeah, it's been good racing down there.
Yeah, good stuff. You're going to be out watching the TT fortnight as well, eh?
I might get a bit of a sight out, but
a bit further for you.
Yes, I'm a Southern 100 man. There's no point in dragging all the way to see the TT when you've got the Southern 100.
Well,
so
good. So what have you been up to apart from that? Vegetables and
things?
Yes,
yeah, back in the spud garden, trying to break what the ground, which is set like concrete either side of the spuds. So the spuds are peeping up through the trench that I dug, but either because I did it sort of mid-April and everything was sopping wet, and it's all set like concrete. And I'm going to earth the spuds up now, and these big lumps of clods all coming out. So yes. Don't talk about it.
All right, we'll change the subject. What are we going to be talking about between now and 12 then, amongst the music?
Harry Kelly's Cottage was officially opened, how many years ago? 1938, so how many years ago was that? 80 years ago. So we'll talk a little bit about Harry Kelly. I think the Manx National Heritage have got something on a week next Sunday. So on Sunday the 10th, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. I know the trustees are invited to something, but yeah, so quite a big event, the opening of Harry Kelly's Cottage, first ever open air folk museum in the British Isles. Yeah, there's loads of really interesting things we can talk about with about Harry Kelly. I've got a few place names from the TT course. I've got George Broderick's book on Manx place names, and I've got the German and Patrick version. So there's the Glenfaber. You decide which one it is. But it's that Sheeding's place name, so we can have a look through some of those.
Okay. And watched a couple of documentaries the other day with ABBA with them little tight suits on them, Phil. It was quite alarming, really.
Yeah, I imagine it would be. Yes. I'm afraid I missed that documentary, but
it was on a YouTube thing I was looking at. So I suppose I've only got myself to blame for putting myself through that. But
yes,
still going, aren't they? And still a phenomenon.
Yeah, is there some reunion or something? I was
they're actually going to make a song, aren't they? After these 30 years, and people saying, "Oh, you've got back together." And it was the old Eagles thing. We never broke up.
Right.
Well,
there you
just
go.
Stop doing it, But just you think all the pressures in life of one of the girls just couldn't stand flying. She had a few bad experiences and didn't want to tour and things. So you can see why, can't you?
Yes, I suppose that's fair enough too. Yeah.
Good. Harry Kelly's cottage.
Yes. Well, it's very
for those who are visiting the island.
Yes. Well, it's right as far southwest as you can get. Just before you get to the sea, really, there's is a wonderful village. Well, that's again that term village. Whether it really exists in Manx geographical parlance is to be questioned. But Cregneash, down on the southwest of the island, traditional thatch cottages down there. The probably one of the reasons it remained isolated from the world was it was only fairly recently, maybe about I forget the exact year now, but about 100 years ago, that the main road up to Cregneash from Port St Mary was developed. And prior to that, you had to go out through Port St Mary, out along to Fisted, Glenchas, then up the Howe. Real twisty, narrow little road if you wanted to get to Cregneash. So you can imagine how the community became quite isolated, and it was certainly the last. It had a number of important lasts, and I'd like to think a few firsts as well when it comes to the language. Certainly the last place where there's a record of a monoglot Manx speaker, somebody who couldn't speak any English. That was now what was her name? Charlotte Kegan, I think it was. And not Harry Kelly, Ned Madrill, the last of the native speakers of Manx. He used to translate for her when the bread man came to Cregneash, apparently, which is quite funny, really. So that was one important aspect of Cregneash. It was probably the last place where Manx was spoken by the community as a sort of community language. And but in terms of important firsts, it was one of the most important places where people went to find out about the language. And as we'll find out later, a very important Professor Carl Marstrander turned up in Cregneash in the late sort of 20s, early 30s, and did a load of research, particularly with Harry Kelly. And Carl Marstrander had originally begun his career down in the Blasket Islands, which are the southwest of Ireland, just off the Cork. Is it Cork or Kerry? Kerry it is, isn't it? Off the Kerry coast, out by Dingle, really another remote community. And that he began his life learning or finding out about these really quite ancient Gaelic communities out on the Blasket Islands. And when he arrived in Cregneash, he was quite disappointed because, first of all, there'd been the passage of 20 or 30 years, but also the Isle of Man was much more, or much less remote, I suppose. So what he found in the island wasn't as interesting to him as these fantastic, incredibly isolated places out on the west coast of Kerry. But Harry Kelly was the man that gave him insights into the language and culture of the Isle of Man.
All right, lovely. We're going to be hearing more about Harry Kelly throughout the morning, plus some of the names in Manx, or what they mean to some of our visiting people who are here for the Isle of Man TT Festival. Right. So a taste of that one. I don't think Cheryl Crow's coming with them, though. Although
I
there's a
don't
few
suppose so.
crows on the
Yes,
island.
there'll be plenty of crows anyway. Maybe we
Right.
could get Pam Crow up to do a turn. That would always be entertaining, I'm sure.
Well, yes. And wonder if there's any Cheryl crows on the island.
Well, who knows?
You don't know.
Yeah.
166177 is the number. Let's get back on to Harry Kelly's cottage then, the famous cottage down at Cregneash.
Absolutely. So while Marstrander, Carl Marstrander, this professor who did loads of work studying various Celtic languages, but particularly our interest is the work he did with Manx. He made quite a friendship, obviously, with Harry Kelly, but also with William Cubban, who at that time was the director of the Manx Museum and National Trust, as it was called in those days, now Manx National Heritage, of course. And William Cubban and Carl Marstrander, I think, hatched this plan that it would be really fantastic to commemorate I suppose the old Manx-speaking communities in some way. And fortunately, when Harry Kelly eventually died, William Cubban had sort of got this idea in his mind, and was talking then to the family of Harry Kelly, and it was agreed that they would leave the cottage to the Manx Museum and National Trust. And then 3 years later, because Harry Kelly died in 1935, 3 years later, the cottage was opened up to the public. Apparently, the story goes, it's left in its sort of
as he went, wasn't it?
As he went, but actually, it's not quite like that. There was apparently there was lino on the floor. There was an old stove in the challoch and things like this. So it has changed. I think they tried to put it back to what they felt or thought a traditional Manx cottage would have looked like. So it's not quite as
it's as near as you'll get.
Kelly left it, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. The other interesting thing, actually, the famous photograph of Harry Kelly, if there is such a thing as a famous photograph of Harry Kelly standing outside his cottage. There's no whitewash on the walls, and I know Manx National Heritage recently have been sort of trying out not whitewashing everything and making it look like a sort of a front of a chocolate box or whatever. It's making it feel a little bit more raw and authentic. But of course, people who've been used to Cregneash having these fantastic whitewashed buildings are probably now looking at it and thinking, gosh, this looks awful scruffy. Can't they afford a bit of whitewash to slap on the walls?
Oh, you can't do right for doing wrong.
No, you can't. But Harry Kelly himself was... he seemed to have a mixed review from what I hear. I mean, I spent some time working at Cregneash, as some people may know, and I had great opportunities to talk to some of the older Cregneash people before they died, and some of them knew Harry Kelly. And some of them, the view was, he was an awful old sleech, that fella, a sly fella. Bit
Who would he be able to tell?
Well, but then others said he was a lovely man. So it's hard to know what the reality was. But certainly, as far as the Manx language was concerned, Harry Kelly, the recordings that we now have of Harry Kelly, Carl Marstrander, and I forget. Oh yeah, there was 29 wax cylinders. Apparently, he was taken down to the station. Was it station? Station Hotel in Port Erin. To have these wax cylinder recordings done. So I don't know whether there was any beer involved with these recordings or not, but it's said that the conditions were not entirely conducive for undertaking recordings. So I don't know, was that the chinking of glasses going on in the back or whatever. But yeah, there were 29 of these wax cylinder recordings taken. Unfortunately, only cylinders 2 to 6 and 8 to 24 remain. But I have a cassette tape copy of these, and I'm sure other people have got copies now. It would be really great if we could finally get these released.
We'll get her in the studio and get a remastered.
Absolutely. No, it'd be really good because it's fantastic to listen to Harry Kelly and actually hear how he spoke Manx. And yeah, it's great, particularly for Manx scholars, obviously. But I think anyone interested in history and heritage would love to hear such an important historical figure actually coming to life through these old recordings.
Okay, more on Harry Kelly soon. It's 10:34 it is. Let's update you on the weather forecast in English and in Manx, and then I'll give you the duty chemist rota for the Isle of Man for a Sunday. If you need any pharmacists, anything like that, we'll give you the duty chemist rota of which chemists are open this lunchtime. But the weather first, another warm or very warm day with the variable amounts of cloud allowing some bright or sunny spells. However, there will be also the slight chance of one or two showers developing, these potentially heavy and thundery as well. The moderate or fresh east or northeast wind will fall light later with the maximum temperature of 22.
Le bla na che elia ton ju leis bodlan kechlach ligga de shallan gyal as grianach de hit rish. De ke veg on the be fras na ge chit rish. As me vissid chit, adakad ve trubm as ten all. Ni na geachen meenach na bio vain sha na tui sha slotail gus shejan gi leis tempralis smoo Jesus feed Celsius.
Okay, time for the first of our Manx tracks this morning, and Phil, this is from Ruth Kegan's solo album. We've been concentrating on that for the last couple of weeks after we had her in as a guest on Moghrey Jedoonee, and this song Ushig Vara.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song written by, well, if it's the same one, there may be another, but Ushig Vara by Bob Carswell. And it talks of how a seabird sort of looks down and sees the way in which mankind is sort of destroying the environment in which he lives. So maybe it's not a beautiful song in that regard, but it's a fantastic tune and really nice lyrics, the way Bob put this together.
There we are, Ushig Vara, Phil. Nice song there. Ruth Kegan from a soul album, Trisht, I think it is, or Tullis.
It could be.
Tullis, Tullis,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, there's a fantastic lyrics in there, and I was just telling you there, and I'll tell the listeners this because it's quite a funny story. A fellow called Charles Crane, father of Margie and Trina and Finlow, that some people may know from the north of the island. In that song you hear Ushig Vara ta nos, and Ushig Vara, as we know, Ushig is the word for a bird, Vara of the sea, so a bird of the sea. Ta nos, ta is come, and nos is from up, because there's a variety of words in Manx for up and down. So you've got up is sos, if you are going up, Tammy gol sos, I am going up. Then you've got hos, means that you are in the state of being up. And then nos is coming down from up. and likewise with hees and shees and niece, which is the words for down. So anyway, this fella Crane was the bank manager in Ramsey. Well, this is the story I've been told anyway. And he'd been puzzling about how to use these different words. So he said there was an old native Manx speaker came into the bank, and he knew this was a native speaker. So he said to him, "Okay, I'm just struggling with some of these words. Could you give us an example of the word of hees? If you could put hees in a sentence for me." So this old fella scratched his head for a little while, and then he says, "Aye, he's a nice fella." He is a nice fella. Missing the point that actually he was wanting the Manx context. But yeah, no, it's really quite a funny story, that. But again, beautiful lyrics in that song written by Bob Carswell. Just one thing, we were talking before the break about Marstrander's recordings of Harry Kelly. And Marstrander wrote, "My impressions of the recordings are somewhat uneven. Kelly's voice is somewhat hoarse, a bit like mine actually, is a bit squeaky and not very sonorous, but the result improves when he speaks relatively softly and his mouth is well close to the horn." So there we are.
Sounds dodgy, doesn't
Well,
it?
yes, perhaps it does. We'll hear a little bit more. I mean, there's some interesting tales about Harry Kelly after the break.
Going on this week, I'd imagine, as well.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's. I was delighted. I thought it was a really good headline that Manx Radio had about bar wars, because you've got the two competing tented bar type
Villages,
facilities,
tented
villages, whatever they call them, either end of the promenade. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Empire strikes back or who actually wins with the bar wars. But just finishing off a little bit about Harry Kelly, and I have to say I'm indebted to John Wright's article in the New Manx Worthies book, and I say it's the New Manx Worthies. It's New Manx Worthies, but it's not a new book. It's been out quite some years now. I think Culture Vannon published it, and it may still be available from Culture Vannon. But it's an article in about Harry Kelly, and it's helping me because I've got some memories of this, but not everything. So one of the things that Harry Kelly did, I know he built a lot of stone walls around Cregnason, but also on the Calf of Man, and he worked for a fellow called George Carey on the Calf as the rabbit catcher, and apparently this crop was reputed to net Carey £50 profit annually, a large sum in the late 19th century. Large sum indeed. The other thing, though, that and this was a story that I got when I used to work in Harry Kelly's cottage from a fellow called Terry Kelly, who was there before me, and I think he'd got the story. It was one of those stories that was passed down. When George Carey passed away, Harry Kelly inherited his bed. So the bed was obviously in the farmhouse on the Calf of Man. And anyway, Harry would ship this across. Well, the only way he could get it across on his rowing boat was to put the bed on top of the rowing boat and then sit on top of the bed and row the bed across, which sounds quite amusing. I'd love to have seen that. And whether it's true or not, of course, is another matter. And then apparently when he got it to the cottage, he couldn't quite get it in.
Wouldn't fit, would it?
So he had to saw the legs off to get it into the house. Yeah, so that's a lovely little story about Harry Kelly's. It was great. That was one of the great things about working in Harry Kelly's cottage, was getting these stories, and you weren't really sure whether they were true, half true, or just made up. But it was great fun.
Good stuff. Thank you for that interesting story about Harry Kelly's. Touch on that, plus some Manx place names in the second half of the programme. Very warm for the rest of the day, with variable cloud and the threat of some showery rain, especially in the south of the island. A locally fresh northeast wind at first will fall light, and temperatures will reach 22 degrees throughout the day. A fine day tomorrow with light winds, long sunny spells, and temperatures again around 22. And the outlook continuing mostly dry and sunny for the rest of the week and remaining warm. Let's have it in Manx now with Phil Gawne.
Le blan a che Elliot on Jew, leis Bodgelan Chechlach ligge de Shallan Gyal as Grianach the hit rish. To care veg on the be fras na chit rish, suggest a ye. As me vissid chit, oddach ad ve trubben as tenol. Ni na geachen mienach na bioa vayan sha na tui sha slotail goshejan gi les temprela smu gis as feed Celsius. And reet, chirum grianach as blas on an good smu son an chacht and a man.
8.5 minutes past 11 o'clock. It is Moghrey Jedoonee. It means Sunday morning in Manx. And the programme for the 2 hours every Sunday morning delves into the culture and language and anything to do with the Isle of Man. Phil, don't we try and get anything bizarre in?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the programme is sponsored both by Culture Vannon and the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee, so we need a bit of culture and a bit of Gaelic in there. But yeah, a fairly eclectic mix of topics on the programme. And yeah, we've been talking obviously about Harry Kelly in the first part of the programme. 80 years now since Harry Kelly's cottage was opened up to the public, and at the time I think it was Harry Kelly's cottage and the sort of the wood turner's shed, which used to be the old cow house belonging to Harry Kelly's family, and then gradually over the years that followed, I think they managed to get the weaver's house, and then Creben's Cottage, and then later on they got where the cafe and the visitors centre are there, Cummal Shee, and gosh, I can't remember the other one. Gosh, getting old.
Yeah, you'll remember it in a minute.
I will, yes. And then, of course, the farm, Church Farm, or Tummons Farm, as it used to be called, that was added, when was that? Back in the, was it late 70s, 80s time? And, yeah, really important work that goes on at Cregneash in terms of reminding people about the Gaelic heritage of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, and the interesting one you mentioned about the whitewashing there, and you look back, you're from the agricultural background like me, and a lot of the farmers every year or so would put the whitewash back on the walls of the cows, wouldn't they?
Yes, certainly.
I think it was for disease things as well.
Yeah, no, it helps it's to stop disease, but that was generally slapping around the inside of the cow houses, but what they also used to do was the whitewash would be put around the doorways, and certainly all the old photographs of Cregneash, you can see that the doorways, particularly with where animals would have been going in and out, there would be whitewash there, because of course that would be where the animals would be rubbing as they were going in and out of either the cow house or the stables, and chances are, if there was any disease about, that's where it would be. So they would whitewash around the door frames and the window frames, but not as much whitewash as you have been used to, I suppose, up at Cregneash.
14 past 11, and just a bit of Manx. It's one of my favourite words that Brian taught me was the Manx for motorbike, which is raw brie.
Yes,
bike of energy.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Raw brie. Yeah, raw is the name they have for a bicycle, and then raw brie is an energetic bicycle, I suppose.
Great.
But there's also there's different ones. They had Caval Yan for a and Gadan Yan. They also used, so Caval is a horse,
isn't it?
And Yan is an iron horse. So and Gadan Yan they would have, which is a kind of a small horse or a mule. So a Gadan Yan might be a push bike. Whereas a Caval Yan was a motorbike, so they had different versions for there was some kind of slang.
Sort of makes sense, wouldn't it? Bike of horsepower.
Yeah.
You know,
an iron horse. So
sounds like something from the war, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh, getting scary now. All right, some place names that people might know. Obviously, a lot of places around, particularly the TT course. We're only talking about that because obviously we've got some visitors listening before Manx Radio TT starts tomorrow morning as well. And of course, Bala, a lot of places around the course are Bala, which simply means homestead or place off, isn't it?
Yes, homestead, place of, farm, I suppose you could say nowadays as well. But yeah, the one thing I should say about place names, they are notoriously difficult because, of course, nobody really knows. I mean, you can make guesses based on words that you know exist and based on historical records, but ultimately nobody was there 1,000 years ago when the first person said, I know, we'll call this place such and such. So it's always difficult to get these things right. And I'll give you an example here. That's if my voice holds out. Grebe. They reckon Grebe comes from the Old Norse word gnipa, which is a steep overhanging rock or mountain, or the summit or top of, is another possible definition for it. So if you go back through the records, and this is taken from George Broderick's Place Names of the Isle of Man, the Sheeding of Glenfaber or Glenfarber, depending on your preference. So the first reference to Grebe appears to be in 1705, at which it was called Gneeb, and then later on you get in 1722 Neeb. Then by 1735, Grebe, and then again back in 1769, it's back to Kneeb. Then again, you've got Grebe with a Y, and then by 1871, it's come to its current form, Grebe, as we would recognise it. But certainly in Old Gaelic, the R sometimes, or an N sometimes turns into an R, so you get knock in Ireland, which is the word for, it's basically the same word as cronk. It's interesting the way these things change and mutate as centuries go by. So that's Grebe. Another one, just before you get to Grebe, of course, is Crosby. And I remember my grandmother, she used to say, Crosby, she would call it. And of course, that was another Old Norse name, which was Cross's Farm. But there are a few Gaelic names as well on the TT course, quite a few. As you've referred to, the Ballas, there's lots of Ballas.
Yeah, like Ballacrane would have been home or farm of the Cranes, wouldn't it?
That's a fairly simple one. That's just Crane's Farm. But then we get to Balig, and again, going back, the first records seem to be back in 1704, where it's Balug, or Balug, and then you move through to 1723, where it was Baleg, and then where else have we got here? 1739, it was Balalig, and then gradually you move through different variants of it. Ballinlig was in 1844, and then eventually we get to Balig, which appears to mean farm of or in the hollow. The Bala Lag, I suppose, would be the way we'd say it in Manx. So that was Balig Bridge, the farm of the hollow. As I say, Ballacrane is just a simple one, the Crane's Farm. So Ballaspur, again, I was quite disappointed when I looked that one up to see what this might mean. Because I wasn't sure. Spur doesn't seem to be any sort of Gaelic derived word, and it's just the English word spur, apparently. So the farm of, the place of the spur, as in a spur in the road. That was a disappointment. I thought I was going to find some new
mystical
word that I wasn't aware of, or maybe a mix of Norse and Gaelic.
All right, Phil, got any more the Manx place names there?
Yes, there's a few more in the Glenfaber, sheeding, which I've got with me today. Lamphel, of course, according to...
Lamphel, if people don't understand your Manx accent.
Well, yeah, Lamphel, they apparently it was called in the area, but now no doubt there'll be hundreds of people waving their fists at the radio saying, no, we never said it like that. And of course, this is the notorious thing about place names. But in George Broderick's book on place names, he said, this 850-foot-high mountain practically fills the whole treen of Lamphel. And there's a variety of, there's a couple of possible translations for this. The obvious one, Lamb's Hill or Mountain, Lam Fial from the Old Norse, but it could also be Lammy's Hill, maybe a fellow called Lammy. So that's one. Then if we move down further up the coast to Bergara or Bergaru, and apparently it was called the Bergaru, and for those of you who already speak Manx and know what it means, you would understand the rough road. So the Bergaru, the rough road. Not too rough nowadays as they're speeding through at 120 miles an hour or however fast they go. But Bergara...
Or more than that, Phil.
Is it?
Oh,
yeah. Are they gone faster now, are they?
Oh, yes. They're going
and
faster.
Then, quite a fun one, Craig Willie's Hill, or Craig Willie's Sill, as it's possibly properly described. Willie Sylvester lived out at Poortown and used to come up with a horse and cart working out of Sarah's cottage. So Craig Willie Sill, Willie Sylvester, is probably where that place name comes from. So you can just imagine this, what poor old Willie Sylvester would have made of these motorbikes zipping past as he was trying to go up with his horse and cart.
You can
It'd be
imagine.
fun anyway. Yeah.
Let me tell you about Sunday opinion. No, sorry. Let me tell you about present politics on today after the 12 midday news. On present politics, John Moss takes a closer look at some of the biggest political issues which have dominated the headlines during the month of May. He'll be joined in the studio to discuss those issues by Enterprise Minister and Russian MHK Lawrence Skelly, Douglas East MHK, Chris Robert Shaw, and Nigel Dobson of Garth Commissioners. All on present politics with John Moss after the 12 midday news. And then John presents the Man in Line from 1:15 until 2, which is Manx Radio's live phone-in programme, the chance to have your say amongst anything to do with the topics that they talk about, but the politics or anything at all related to the Isle of Man. Let's have the second of our Manx tracks this morning, though. It comes from the band Barul, and this is the Girls of Balladool. Well, as Manx as you can get, that one. Manx band Barul, and Manx song as well, the Girls of Balladool, Phil, and bring back some memories of playing in the
central. Yeah,
I was going to put it more diplomatic, in some establishments around the island.
Yeah, no, we used to. That was one of the tunes I used to love when I was starting off playing the fiddle with music sessions. For some reason, that particular tune, when you came to the kind of the B part,
that starts.
You'd play the first line, and then everyone would look at one person in the room, and they had to play the second line, and everyone would take a turn, and happy evenings spent in the central in Peel. Long time ago now. Colin Jerry was in charge of the session, and he'd be glowering at anyone who didn't do what they were supposed to. So
I suppose it ironed out the bluffers who were pretending to play.
Yes. There weren't too many of those. But,
no,
you always get one. Yeah, yeah.
Charlie's been on the phone during that song, Phil, asking about Gob of Volley. And I suppose for the non-Manx people, they may not quite know where Gob of Volley is.
Yes.
We do.
Yes, it's, just round about the Quarry Bends area. It's Gob of Volley. Gob in Manx is, not unsurprisingly, the word for a mouth or a beak. But in this instance, it's sort of the mouth of the pass. But again, place names are so notorious. You could sort of make up all sorts of different things, particularly with volley, because vola is another possibility, a wall, but then the mouth of the wall doesn't make sense. And trying to be absolutely sure what a place name means is notoriously difficult to do. But yeah, Gob of Volley appears to be the mouth
or point, isn't it?
Of the pass.
Yeah.
Because it's the entrance up to Sulby Glen.
Yeah, that's the one. Good. So I hope that answers that question there. Any more for us?
No, I think that'll have to do for now. Otherwise, we'll have no programme next week, because I'm hoping to do a whole load. Adrian Kane, the Manx language officer for Culture Vannon, translated the TT course into Manx, because of course there's lots of English words on the TT course as well. So we'll be going through a bit of that next time, doing the Manx and the English. But again, as you say, for those listeners who are new to the island, over for the races, or indeed listeners who are unfamiliar with the Manx language, there's a few obvious things to look out for in place names. Cronk is obviously a hill. And then you can have Bala, which is, as we said earlier, the place of, the homestead of, possibly the farm of. And then you have words like Moor, which would be big, and Beg, which is little.
Craig.
Craig, of course, is a rock. Yeah, there's a whole range of different things there that once you start learning a few of these words, you can start developing quite a bit of language just from your knowledge of place names.
All right, lovely. After the break and the song, we're going to be talking. Phil's going to give us some words and lyrics from a song in English and in Manx. It's 17 minutes before 12. 10 minutes to 12 midday. And Phil, we've got some lyrics in Manx and English from some songs. You're not going to sing it today,
No, my voice is probably not up to it today, but and maybe not other days, who knows. But if you recall, this band of Manxies had raised a bit of money to buy a boat to go and fight the French and the Americans, and the farmers were shouting because how are they going to get the ploughing done with all these fellas disappearing off on the boat to go on this little jaunt. So for sure thou o al quite eiracht and heert. The Gawne vek gillian vannon son culta chur fo chreach. This thing they greatly dreaded, that none would be able to follow the plough. Scarce would be the Manx lads to put culta under the furrow. Ver Iliam vura condra as dunya vura chronk, vad gillick son the gillian, ver huish the ninan och. So big Will Condry was there, and the big man of the hill, and they were calling for the young men that they had plenty of girls. O shuashin yinan vannon to dobberin ons do, grey nachfel gillen faggot, och perchin nachfel few. O ye daughters of Mona, who are mourning in black, saying, there are no lads left but boys of no value. The velad all you falch, board a privateer, a scorn ma tahuish faggot, as roshus fair care. That they are all of them hired on board the privateer. Scarcely as many left as will reach one amongst four. I've lost my place now, just a minute. As tre nach fel huish faggot, as roshus fair a fish, te for the share they follow and nay fair ether geese. When there are not as many left to reach one apiece, it would be better to be without than to have one between the two. However, that's the problem with the girls, but the boys were having a great time. Gew as clay en a carton, hum ronan as le, gre blebian the gillen, nach jed noi Americae. So drinking and playing at cards employed us night and day, saying the lads were fools who didn't come to fight against the Americans. Ma einet hai me meru, as hath me soustus gun, as kinjak va me dobberin, the row Moghrey Jedoonee. So compelled, I went with them and stood up to the gun, incessantly bewailing or worrying that my love would forsake me. And then the final bit for today. Na keerten va me smonjachtan, nach vachen I the brech, as chau me leen seechnach, na lai ons byrum say. At times I was thinking I'd never see her any more, and spend my days so sadly lying in Ramsey Bay.
All right. Thank you, Phil.
Well, no, there'll be more of that next week, and we'll see as it develops the rather comical and sad nature of them ending up capturing the wrong boat.
Okay, thank you for that and your contribution to this morning's Moghrey Jedoonee.